Megan Huntsman was born and raised in Utah, a state known for its close-knit communities and quiet suburban neighborhoods. On the surface, she appeared to be an ordinary woman, a wife, and later a mother, living a life that looked typical to the outside world. People who knew her casually would never have guessed the horrifying secrets she was hiding. But beneath the surface, Megan's personal struggles were slowly consuming her. Her life took a darker turn as she became increasingly dependent on drugs, particularly methamphetamine. Addiction not only eroded her sense of judgment but also distanced her from her family and responsibilities. Friends and relatives noticed changes in her personality, describing her as withdrawn and erratic. Her marriage suffered deeply, plagued by mistrust, arguments, and financial issues tied to substance abuse. This downward spiral created a toxic environment where her ability to function as a responsible mother was completely compromised. What made her situation even more disturbing was how well she managed to conceal her addiction from much of the outside world. For years, no one suspected the depth of her struggles, and certainly no one could imagine the dark decisions she would make. It was within this shadowed existence that Megan Huntsman would commit crimes so shocking that they would leave an indelible mark on her community and on criminal history in the United States. Between 1996 and 2006, Megan secretly gave birth to 7 children. To neighbors, there was no obvious sign of pregnancies, and to extended family, her increasingly reclusive behavior meant there were fewer questions asked. Of these 7 babies, Megan allowed only 1 child to live. The other 6 were murdered shortly after birth. Her method was chilling. After delivering the infants alone, she would suffocate or strangle them within moments of birth. Their fragile bodies were then placed into cardboard boxes and hidden in her garage. The garage soon became a tomb, holding the remains of the lives she had taken but concealed so carefully that no one discovered them for years. Megan later explained that her reasoning was tied to her drug addiction and her belief that she could not raise more children. Yet, her decisions went far beyond desperation, they reflected a shocking level of detachment and cruelty. Rather than seeking help or considering alternatives such as adoption, she chose silence and murder. For nearly a decade, the secret crimes remained hidden in plain sight. Friends, neighbors, and even her husband were completely unaware of the horror that lurked inside their own home. The sheer brutality of the acts, combined with how long they remained undetected, is what made the case one of the most shocking examples of maternal killings in American history. The truth finally emerged in April 2014. Megan's estranged husband, Darren West, had returned to their former home after spending years in federal prison on drug-related charges. While cleaning out the garage, Darren stumbled upon a suspicious cardboard box. When he opened it, he was confronted with the remains of a deceased infant. Horrified, he immediately contacted the authorities. When police arrived, they conducted a thorough search of the garage and uncovered 6 infant bodies in total, each hidden inside separate boxes. The discovery shocked not only the investigators but also the entire Utah community. News of the case spread quickly, with the media labeling the garage a house of horrors. Megan Huntsman was located and arrested shortly after the discovery. Unlike many who might deny involvement, Megan confessed openly to her crimes during questioning. She admitted to killing 6 of the 7 babies she had given birth to over the 10-year period. Her calm demeanor during interrogation disturbed investigators, who struggled to understand how a mother could act with such detachment. The community, which had once seen Megan as an unremarkable neighbor, was now faced with the reality that she had hidden unimaginable atrocities just steps away from their own homes. What made the case particularly chilling was not only the killings themselves but also how long they had remained undiscovered. The arrest marked the beginning of a highly publicized legal process that would expose the horrifying details of Megan's actions. Megan Huntsman's trial revealed details that shocked the courtroom and the public. Prosecutors described her actions as deliberate and repeated, demonstrating that this was not a single incident of desperation but a pattern of calculated murder spanning a decade. Her explanation that drug addiction and her inability to raise more children drove her actions did little to lessen the severity of the crimes in the eyes of the court. Her defense team attempted to highlight her addiction and unstable mental state, but no psychiatric defense was formally raised. Instead, her own admissions sealed her fate. The evidence was overwhelming: 6 infant bodies, her confession, and the timeline that matched her pregnancies. In 2015, Megan Huntsman was sentenced to multiple terms of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentencing brought some sense of justice, but it also left the community grappling with disbelief. How had she been able to conceal multiple pregnancies and murders for so long? How had no one noticed? These were questions that haunted both investigators and the public. The judge described the crimes as among the most horrific he had ever encountered. Family members of Darren West and others who knew Megan expressed both sorrow and anger at what had happened. For many, the sentencing closed a legal chapter but could never erase the disturbing nature of the crimes or the lasting trauma they left behind. The Megan Huntsman case remains one of the most chilling examples of hidden family crimes in modern America. It revealed how drug addiction and secrecy can create an environment where even the most unthinkable acts can remain concealed for years. Neighbors expressed guilt and confusion, wondering how they could have lived so close without noticing repeated pregnancies and the resulting tragedies. The case also sparked debates on maternal filicide, drug abuse, and the failure of social systems to identify warning signs. Megan's actions highlighted the darker side of suburban life, where behind closed doors, addiction and isolation can fester into catastrophic outcomes. For law enforcement, the case served as a reminder of the importance of vigilance and community awareness. For society, it was a tragic story of wasted lives, not only the 6 infants who were murdered but also the unraveling of Megan's own existence, consumed by drugs and secrecy. Today, Megan Huntsman serves her life sentences in prison, her name forever associated with one of Utah's darkest criminal cases. The tragedy of her actions stands as both a cautionary tale and a chilling reminder of how easily the worst crimes can remain hidden in plain sight. Michelle Blair was a Detroit mother who lived a life that, at first glance, seemed no different from many struggling parents in her community. She was raising her children in poverty, facing daily financial pressures, and living in a neighborhood where hardship was common. To outsiders, she looked like a woman trying to get by in difficult circumstances. But those who lived under her roof experienced a different reality, one shaped by fear, control, and violence. Michelle herself grew up with reports of abuse during her own childhood, and this history of trauma carried into her adult life. Instead of breaking the cycle, she developed into a parent who was extremely harsh, paranoid, and often violent. This dangerous combination of unresolved anger and poor living conditions created an environment where her darkest impulses went unchecked. Her obsession with control became more pronounced as her children grew older. Michelle's parenting style was not one of discipline and care, but of intimidation and cruelty. Her children rarely experienced warmth or safety, and the smallest mistake could trigger explosive reactions. The abuse escalated over time, but what made Michelle's case stand out was her fixation on 2 of her children specifically, her daughter, Stoney Blair, and her son, Stephen Barry. She accused both of them of sexually abusing their siblings. These accusations were never investigated, verified, or proven in court, but Michelle became convinced of their guilt. Rather than seeking legal help, therapy, or intervention from child services, she decided to take matters into her own hands. This decision marked the beginning of years of terror within her household. Michelle subjected Stoney and Stephen to relentless physical abuse that stretched far beyond punishment. Reports revealed she beat them, starved them, burned them with scalding water, and used plastic bags to suffocate them temporarily as a form of torture. Her methods were cruel, calculated, and repetitive, designed to break them down physically and emotionally. Eventually, this pattern of violence turned fatal. She killed both Stoney and Stephen in her home, claiming later that she did it to protect her other children from alleged abuse. After murdering them, Michelle made no attempt to dispose of the bodies outside her home. Instead, she placed their remains in a freezer in her apartment. For nearly 3 years, those bodies remained hidden in plain sight, sealed away in a household appliance while life carried on as though nothing had happened. The horrifying truth only came to light in March 2015. Authorities arrived at Michelle Blair's residence to serve an eviction notice, an action unrelated to the murders themselves. As they inspected the property, they opened the freezer and made a shocking discovery: the frozen bodies of Stoney Blair and Stephen Barry. The officers immediately called for backup, and the crime scene quickly turned into one of the most disturbing cases Detroit had ever witnessed. News of the freezer children spread rapidly, shocking not only the local community but also the entire nation. Neighbors who had thought they knew Michelle were left speechless, unable to comprehend how such crimes could have occurred unnoticed right next door. Michelle was arrested the same day, and from the very beginning, she showed little resistance or denial. Instead, she openly confessed to killing her children. In interviews and court appearances, she displayed a disturbing lack of remorse. She claimed that her actions were justified, insisting again and again that Stoney and Stephen had sexually abused their siblings and that she had no choice but to protect them. Her blunt tone and unapologetic explanations horrified the public and legal professionals alike. She spoke about her crimes without hesitation, almost with pride, as though she believed she had done the right thing. During her trial, Michelle Blair's demeanor shocked observers even more than the details of the case itself. She did not cry or show sorrow when describing the abuse and murder of her children. Instead, she doubled down on her claims, accusing the deceased children of being predators and labeling herself as their executioner. The defense struggled to present her actions in any sympathetic light, while the prosecution emphasized the extreme cruelty and the premeditated nature of the killings. Ultimately, the court dismissed her justifications and handed down the harshest possible sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. For many, her sentencing felt like justice, but it could not erase the years of horror her surviving children endured. The Michelle Blair case had a deep impact beyond the courtroom. It highlighted systemic failures in detecting child abuse and domestic violence. For years, no school officials, neighbors, or authorities had intervened strongly enough to uncover what was happening inside her home. The fact that 2 children could vanish, their bodies hidden in a freezer for 3 years, without raising immediate red flags pointed to serious gaps in child welfare oversight. The case also sparked debates about mental health, generational trauma, and how poverty can trap families in cycles of violence that go unnoticed until it is too late. Neighbors later spoke about how Michelle seemed like a normal mother in public, while in reality, her home was a prison of fear. For the surviving children, the scars went beyond physical survival. They were left with the trauma of witnessing abuse, the deaths of their siblings, and years of silence. Their testimonies about what life was like under Michelle Blair revealed a chilling truth: even within one of the most developed nations in the world, children could suffer extreme abuse and remain invisible to the outside world. In conclusion, Michelle Blair's story remains one of the most disturbing examples of maternal filicide in modern U.S. history. She was not driven by sudden madness or a single moment of rage, but by a long and deliberate campaign of violence against her own children. Her case serves as a reminder of how unchecked mental instability, combined with systemic failures, can lead to unimaginable tragedies. The name Michelle Blair will forever be associated with the horrifying freezer murders of Detroit, a grim symbol of betrayal, abuse, and the ultimate destruction of the bond between mother and child. Andrea Yates was born in Houston, Texas, and grew up as the youngest of 5 children in a working-class Catholic family. She excelled in school and was remembered as a bright and disciplined student. After high school, Andrea pursued nursing and later became a registered nurse. She was highly intelligent, reserved, and ambitious. However, beneath her achievements, she struggled with feelings of loneliness and vulnerability. When she met Rusty Yates in the late 1980s, they quickly formed a relationship based on shared values, faith, and the desire for a large family. They married in 1993 and eventually had 5 children together. Their family life was deeply religious, with Rusty following a conservative Christian preacher's teachings that emphasized having many children and living with strict devotion. This environment, while spiritually strong, placed increasing stress on Andrea, especially as her mental health declined with each pregnancy. She experienced postpartum depression after her first child and grew more unstable with every subsequent birth. Despite doctors' warning against having more children due to her fragile psychological state, she and Rusty continued expanding their family. By the time their youngest child was born, Andrea's mental health had severely deteriorated. She battled postpartum psychosis, heard voices, and believed she was unworthy as a mother. These struggles set the stage for one of the most tragic family murders in American history. On the morning of June 20, 2001, while Rusty left for work, Andrea was left alone in their Houston home with her 5 children: Noah, aged 7, John, 5, Paul, 3, Luke, 2, and Mary, just 6 months old. That day, in a deeply disturbed state of mind, she carried out an unthinkable act. One by one, she drowned each child in the bathtub. First was John, followed by Paul and Luke. She then laid their bodies on a bed, covering them with a sheet. Afterward, she drowned Mary, her infant daughter, and finally Noah, her eldest, who reportedly tried to run when he saw what was happening but could not escape. In less than an hour, Andrea had taken the lives of all 5 of her children. She later explained that she believed she was saving them from eternal damnation. Her delusions convinced her that if they grew up, they would be corrupted by sin and go to hell, and the only way to protect them was to end their lives. This chilling belief stemmed from her severe postpartum psychosis and deep-rooted religious fears. Her crimes shocked the world not only because of the number of victims but also due to the cold, methodical way she acted, entirely driven by her mental illness. After committing the murders, Andrea called 911 and calmly reported what she had done. She also called Rusty at his workplace, telling him to come home immediately. When police arrived, Andrea confessed without hesitation. She showed no signs of trying to cover up the crime, as though she genuinely believed she had done the right thing for her children. The investigators and first responders were horrified by the scene inside the Yates household. The sheer magnitude of the crime, combined with Andrea's eerie composure, quickly captured national headlines. As news spread, the public struggled to comprehend how a mother, once described as loving and attentive, could commit such a crime against her own children. From the very beginning, it was clear that Andrea's case was different from typical murder trials because her mental health history was extensive and well documented. Andrea's trial began in 2002, and the courtroom was packed with media, legal experts, and members of the public eager to witness the proceedings. The prosecution argued that Andrea knew what she was doing and that she deliberately killed her children while her husband was away at work, demonstrating premeditation. They sought the maximum penalty, presenting her calmness after the murders as proof of sanity. The defense, however, highlighted her long history of mental illness, including multiple hospitalizations, suicide attempts, and medical warnings that went unheeded. They argued she was suffering from severe postpartum psychosis and was incapable of distinguishing right from wrong at the time of the killings. During the trial, one expert witness for the prosecution gave false testimony about a fictional television show episode in which a mother drowned her children and then was acquitted. This misleading statement heavily influenced the jury. As a result, Andrea was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. However, in 2006, her conviction was overturned on appeal due to the false expert testimony, and she was retried. During the second trial, her defense emphasized her psychosis and delusions more strongly, and this time, the jury found her not guilty by reason of insanity. Andrea was not released but was instead committed indefinitely to Kerrville State Hospital, a high-security mental health facility in Texas. This outcome sparked significant public debate. Some were outraged that she was not serving a prison sentence, while others believed justice had been served by recognizing the role of her mental illness. The retrial and verdict became a landmark in the ongoing discussion about the insanity defense in the United States. The Andrea Yates case left a lasting mark on both legal and medical fields. It brought national attention to postpartum psychosis, a condition far less understood than postpartum depression. Many questioned why medical professionals did not take stronger action when Andrea's doctors had clearly documented her condition and even advised against having more children. The case also raised questions about Rusty Yates' decisions and the religious pressures in their household that may have exacerbated Andrea's illness. In broader society, the case became an example of how untreated mental illness can lead to devastating consequences. Advocacy groups began pushing for better maternal mental health awareness and resources, emphasizing that postpartum psychosis is rare but extremely dangerous if left untreated. Today, Andrea Yates remains in a mental health institution, where she is reported to live quietly, taking part in therapy and simple daily activities like knitting and reading. She rarely has contact with the outside world and has chosen not to pursue release, reportedly believing she belongs in the hospital. Her case continues to be studied in law schools, medical programs, and criminology courses as one of the most infamous examples of maternal filicide in history. It serves as a reminder of the devastating impact of untreated mental illness, the ethical complexities of the insanity defense, and the enduring question of justice when crime and mental health intersect. The murders of her 5 children will never be forgotten, and Andrea Yates' name remains forever tied to one of the darkest family tragedies in American history.